It can be easy to forget the tough position that cartoon watchers were in before Ren and Stimpy came around, and we have the show to thank for spearheading the animation world out of the slump that it was in. For a period of time, it was moved away from the traditional method of storyboards. Storyboards are what allowed the planning to visualize the impact the animation would have, whether the visual gags or the action is what needed to be conveyed. It was a foundation that made animation such a widely unique method of creation. It took the right show to make the kind of change that was needed to breathe in a new sense of life into animation, and John Kay was destined to be the man to do it. Make no room to comfort yourselves here. Ren and Stimpy is old. Many new people have come and gone that would push content further, but there still are those of us who can remember what made such a series so unique. Spoomco, the studio behind Ren and Stimpy, didn't just use unique visuals despite how innovative they were. The audio is what made the coffee to your donuts, from the sound effects that were used to the classical music that added to the atmosphere of what you were watching. What was created wasn't simply a show that kids were able to enjoy. Parents who probably felt like they could have outgrown animation were now exposed to something that invited them to watch as well as if they could stomach the humor. The jokes were genius. There's one in particular that stood out for most of many years. Powdered Toast Man saves the Pope from an exploding barrel lit by the villainous Mud Skipper. Powdered Toast Man and the Pope are flying in the air, and the Pope says that he's struggling to stay on as he's being flown to safety. Powdered Toast Man yells,
"Quick, man! Cling tenaciously to my buttocks!"
As outrageous as that moment is, that isn't the true punchline for me. The Pope is shown with a confused expression as he's looking at Powdered Toast Man's buttocks and quietly asks,
"Both of them?"
The serious nature of the absurdity is what sells the joke, and it's the kind where if you don't pay attention, you miss it. The Pope doesn't even question the idea of clinging to his hero's buttocks, he just completely rolls with it, but needs to ask something unexpected. There's so much potential in a joke that is not trying too hard with the audience. These moments in animation were golden and vital to forming what would be my sense of humor as I was a kid. I said that John Kay would be the man destined, and what I truly believe is that a person's creation is in its own way an extension of themselves. Ren and Stimpy had been a collaborative between the studio employees with John Kay, but the work was his baby. In 2018, BuzzFeed of all sources would release an article about John Kay and his relationships with younger women. As much as BuzzFeed was a terrible example of journalism, it was difficult to read the article and not feel that sense of worry, asking myself, what if this is correct? I didn't know what I could verify for myself, and there wasn't much I could do. Unfortunately, if there was still doubt, the documentary called Happy Happy, Joy Joy would completely squash it as Robin Bird laid out her emotions of what happened while clips played of John Kay confirming the relationship. His regret and how he wishes to apologize to her. As if a person who went through that would really find that to be enough. It doesn't help that Bird was not the only woman that suffered this kind of history, as John Kay seemed to have a thing for younger women. If BuzzFeed's article is correct, Katie Rice was at least 14 and talking to John Kay while he's a middle-aged man. When a person is that young and a massive fan of someone, they'll take the opportunity to be able to talk to that person. That said, I don't understand the perspective of John Kay. I don't understand what compels a person at the age of 41 to be talking to a 15-year-old in the way that he did. All of this was going on as something I loved so very much was being celebrated, and we had no clue. I would watch John K's interview videos and marvel at the way he was so well spoken and be able to keep a bit going when something was funny. There are many things I can look past as something from years ago. I joke about Burzum and how Varg killed Euronymous. This, however, is something I never was able to reconcile. These women were victims, and they have to live with what happened with them. The only bit of comfort I can have is that John K. did show a sense of remorse. He perhaps understands that a simple apology won't fix things. I'm not a nostalgia person. Nostalgia is bullshit. What I look for is what will stand the test of time, and I praised Ren and Stimpy because what was created was able to do so. To see something that created so much joy and sparked imagination and creativity become so stained is a tragedy. I think that this is something we all go through. For Nickelodeon, so much has been absolutely wrecked for what made them so successful in a mere handful of years. In a previous video of mine, though, I discussed how the things you love are often made by people with beliefs that are incompatible to your own, and it is your responsibility to reconcile when that happens. Perhaps this is one of those instances where I can't. I cannot understand John K's mentality when he had a minor move in with him. I don't want to understand it either. A teenager should be able to live the normal life of a teenager. I believe that was taken from Bird. I say all of this as someone who has always been into older women. When I became a young adult and was ready for the dating scene in the real world, what did I really want? Cougars. MILFs. However, I would have to wait a long while because at that age, they wouldn't have as much in common with me. For the girls John K. was involved with, they were fans, and the power dynamic was much more complicated. All it takes is just enough information, and a person can suddenly find themselves asking if they're comfortable, still enjoying the works, or if the shadow of one's creator's choices has enough power to ruin the legacy that was built. We know about John K., who at least understood he ruined his own life. We know about Dan Schneider. Both of these were involved in projects so highly known and praised, yet behind closed doors had horrific secrets. Just imagine what else is out there, locked away in a box that you could never close if it were to ever be opened.
Look for comic book. This is the characters. You can see them here. One of them's a hot chick with big cans and nice legs. Who drew that? You?
She's underage, too.
Yeah, very nice.
Oh,
Very nice.
Hey now.